Glovebox Live's Nick John talks to Nick Hemming from the Leisure Society about their sellout tour, the inspiration for the latest album, and his meetings with Brian Eno and Ray Davies.
This is another interview for Glovebox Live, and I'm at the old fire station with Nick Hemming from the Leisure Society. Welcome to Oxford, Nick.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
First night of the tour?
It is, yeah. So a bit nervous at the moment. But,
sold out?
It is, yeah. So it's fantastic. In fact, it's all the dates have sold out.
Fantastic, yeah. Because I think you're playing St Pancras Old Church.
Yes, yeah, we're doing
I've
two
never
shows.
heard about that as a venue.
Yeah, well, I've heard of it, but I've never been there. Like a lot of bands that I like have done little kind of secret shows there. And it was just we were just trying to find somewhere small, because this is a trio tour as opposed to the full band, so we were trying to play smaller venues.
Why did you go for an acoustic tour at this point?
Well, because we went to Italy in February this year, and we went there out of necessity. We couldn't afford to take the whole band over, and we wanted to play around a little bit. Somebody suggested us doing an acoustic tour. Originally they said, do you want to do it solo? And I was like, no way. And then we said, could we do it as a trio? And we managed to just about make it work. So we went all over Italy. Because usually we can't afford to take the whole band there.
Well, you can three of them get in one van, can't you?
Yeah, well, in a car actually. We're in a state car, yeah. So it's pretty tight, but it's it's better because it's just so easy. You just get there, you have like half an hour sound check instead of a 3-hour sound check. There's not a van full of equipment, and you haven't got to find rooms for 6 or 7 people. So
it's much more self-contained.
Yeah, and it was fun. We enjoyed doing it so much because it was kind of a different way of presenting the songs, and it's it's tough at times. There's some things you can't do without the drums and the bass, but then other things.
So do you have a very disappointed rhythm section?
Yes, they're okay because they appreciate.
We don't get to go to Italy.
Yeah, they appreciate that we're kind of spreading the word whilst they're away. But hopefully, as a result of this, kind of more people know about us in Italy, and we can go back with the full band. But yeah, we enjoyed it so much that we thought, because we haven't done anything over here for a while, we thought we'd take this show and just do a very restricted tour, just like a few dates, small venues, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, they're always good, aren't they? I mean, if it's all sold out.
It's quite nerve-wracking. It's a lot more nerve-wracking playing acoustically, I find, because it's more intimate. It's like people are kind of...
You're more exposed, aren't you?
Yeah, right in your face, and
and everybody's listening quietly and respectfully.
Exactly, yeah.
To your every wobble.
Yeah. So this first one should be interesting. We'll see how it goes.
Now, I must admit, I'm a newcomer to music. You've had a lot of comparisons to Neil Hannon and Divine Comedy, different Stevens and things like that. Are you pleased with that? Do you feel you I mean, you obviously stand by your own music and everything, but do you feel that kind of pastoral pop thing fits what you do?
Kind of, sometimes, but we're quite eclectic as well. Sometimes people don't pick up on this. Like some people call us a folk pop band, and they don't. You think if you listen to the full album, because there's like lots of kind of rocky elements and all kinds of things going on. But I can see why people say that, and to be honest,
we love to pigeonhole.
Yeah, exactly. You need to categorise things, don't you? And it's I love the Divine Comedy and I love Sushi and Stevens. So if we get compared to either of those two, then that's great.
I put the same question. We had C. Duncan here.
Oh yeah,
in May, I think it was, or April, May, and I put the same question to him, and he just said, "I don't mind. As long as if people are giving me labels, then they're listening."
Yeah, exactly.
So
You know. How did he play? Did he have a full band?
Yeah, he had a full band. Yeah. Well, 4 of them. So
because the album's got a really interesting sound. I don't know how. I've never seen him live.
Well, I said that to him as well, because obviously he'd done the whole album, and his second album, which isn't out yet. Again, he's done in the same way, which is just him, recording in his own studio and everything. And we talked about the difficulties of then taking a finished piece of work and go, right, now we've got to reproduce that live.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah, which is interesting. How do you go about things? Do you write with the band in mind straight away, or
kind of? Well, I write kind of just to the song really, but often I do little demos that I send to the band, and they've usually got a melody line on that I'll have played on a keyboard or something, and that'll sometimes translate into violins or flutes or what have you. But yeah, when I write, I tend to write with melody instruments as well as the vocal and the chords.
Yeah.
I have like ideas for melodies as well. But then once I've sent those demos around, we kind of get together and have a rehearsal, and we just play around with it for for a few
so
hours.
they bring their ideas in on
exactly,
that.
Yeah, and it kind of we're playing quite a few new songs tonight actually, and we went away to me, Mike, and Christian, the trio. We went to France after we got back from Italy. We went to France to record for 3 weeks in a big old house in this place called Richelieu in it's kind of the Loire Valley. We just spent a lot of time kind of me playing these new songs to them, and they were kind of jamming around with ideas, and then we did some recording there as well. But this time it's been a more kind of slow, organic process where rather than just going in a rehearsal room and having to work it out there and then in those hours, we kind of had a much more relaxed approach where we'd just sit around and have a few beers and go for a bike ride, come back, jam the songs, and it's a really good way of doing it.
Is it hard to relax when you're told that you can never fail? Has the bit that you spit from your teeth been replaced by a taste that is all that lost its novelty? You don't need to change, you just need fire and a little faith.
Your song titles are fantastic.
Quite wordy, aren't they?
Yeah, I could imagine you sitting there thinking this,
It's not. I think.
But they're very evocative titles.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's an influence because it's not a deliberate. I don't deliberately try and be really have long titles because it's bloody annoying when you're introducing songs or talking about things. It's a real mouthful. But I think it's because when I started writing lyrics, I was really into Charles Bukowski, and all his poems have really long titles. I think it must have just subconsciously kind of slipped in there. But
do you take the title from the lyrics, or do you sometimes have a title that you go, that's so good that you then that almost puts a train of thought there about the lyrics could be about something?
Yeah, usually
that reflects the title.
Usually they come from the lyrics after I've written them, and I'll have the title afterwards. But there's been a few songs where I've written had an idea for a title and just put it in my diary and come back to it a few months later, or sometimes years later. There was a title, Our Hearts Burn Like Damp Matches, and I just wrote it in my diary, and then I came back to it like 2 years later and wrote a song around that title.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I suppose it's quite a neat trick if you perhaps suffer from writer's block or something,
Yeah.
and you think, well, you need a spark. Well, a title can be a spark, can't it?
Definitely, yeah.
And it will suggest something,
Yeah.
a direction or whatever for the lyrics to go in.
Yeah. And so I have stolen one title as well, which was A Short Weekend Begins. I don't know if I've ever admitted to this, but A Short Weekend Begins with Longing was stolen from I've forgotten his name. He was a cartoonist, an American cartoonist who did a comic called American Splendor. Is it Henry Peacock or something like that? But it was basically a comic strip, and there was just like a cell from the comic, and it was just like him looking down at his feet with a long shadow and like kind of looking bedraggled, and it said A Short Weekend Begins with Longing. I thought, wow, that's amazing. Yeah,
I believe it's true that you can't copyright a title.
Yeah, I think
so. So I think you're okay.
Yeah, they get stolen all the time. Things get stolen all the time, don't they?
I was intrigued by one that I've read some of the reviews for the new album, and I think it was The Guardian said you had glam rock leanings. Is it I'm the Setting Sun?
Yeah.
For that. So I listened to that and I thought, I can definitely hear T.Rex in the guitar chorus. But I just kept thinking Chicory Tip, and I don't know why. I think it's because I loved Son of My Father by Chicory Tip, and I'm old enough to... But I thought, I could kind of see that. But how do you get reviews and things like that, how do you feel about things like that? I
don't know, because I can totally see where that's come from, because it wasn't intentional to do a glam rock song, but when I wrote it was like, well, this has got a bit of the chords have got a real kind of glam rock thing to them, so it was, and we just went with it and tried to kind of enhance the glam rockness of it. But
we were caught in a battle of wills, on with everything we learned, toe to toe in the heat of the hood.
Tell us a little about the new album, because I know the background where you had a friend who sadly passed away from cancer, and was that a direct influence on the way you wrote and the way the album came together?
It was, yeah, because at the time I was kind of struggling a little bit because I'd run out of money. I didn't have a publishing deal anymore, and I just wasn't making any money. So I had to because I'd had 6 years where I'd been a full-time musician. Previous to that, I'd had day jobs for like a decade or more, and so it's like having to go back to doing day jobs again. And I was pretty depressed about it all because it was just like ended up doing kind of manual labour jobs, and I was just like, oh God, I'm back here again, and I can't see a way out. So I was pretty depressed, and then I found out my friend had got cancer, and he just like he kind of dealt with it in such a kind of positive way, and like he was just going through all this shit, and here's me feeling miserable and like sorry for myself, and it's just like, you know, kind of put it into perspective really. And there's also kind of I found it really difficult to talk with him about it, because it's like, how do you talk about the fact that he's probably going to die, almost definitely going to die, and I struggled. So I just started sending him songs, so I started sending him songs, and he was kind of giving me feedback to them, and it was he was just so positive, and he was just saying, you know, he was just kept sending me positive messages, and it's like, he's dealing with all this, and yet he can still kind of find the time to send this back to me. So it became like one of the songs I'd already started writing, actually, the Fine Art of Hanging On, and I started writing it about me, trying to hang on to this music career, such as it was, and I hadn't finished the lyrics, so I ended up using what he was going through as like part of the inspiration for it as well. And that was one song that he really reacted to as well when I sent it to him, and because there's a whip crack on it, and he just, because we were writing to each other basically, like in the old-fashioned way, and he sent back, I love the whip crack, you've got to make that louder, and he just loved it. But yeah, he died before the album came out, it was so it's dedicated to him for that reason, really.
Well, it will stand as a heartfelt tribute.
Yeah, and he was really, it meant a lot to him as well, apparently, because I spoke to his wife afterwards, and she said it really meant a lot getting the letters, and like he like pinned the letter up next to his bed when he got it, and I sent the CD of the demos as well, of the songs that I was working on, and he meant a lot to him to be involved in it, and and he was such an amazing, like, creative, like, positive character, like, really wonderful guy. And then I went to his funeral, and they read out the lyrics to one of my songs as well, which is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever experienced in my life.
You probably could have done without that in a way.
It was lovely. It was like beautiful,
but it is,
flattering,
again,
but it was heartbreaking as well.
Put it all together. Born in the eye of the storm. Does it pain you that the flame we got could grow? Now burn so low. We were born in the top.
Well, it's a lovely collection of songs. I presume we're going to hear some of them tonight.
Yes, we're playing Fine Art of Hanging On. Actually, we've struggled to translate them to acoustic versions. So I think there's only 2 songs off that album. But you say that's a new album, but because we're kind of almost finished the next album now, so like it's kind of almost.
Well, it's kind of half the way, isn't it? If something comes out, you've been with that, you've lived with that for months, and you're on to the next stuff.
So we're actually playing more songs off the album that's not released yet tonight than we are from that album.
Okay, that'd be cool. Tell me a little about Eno. You met Eno.
Yeah,
that must have been quite intimidating.
It was, yeah. Also surprising, because like we just released this, like the first album was quite folky and quite acoustic, and he's the last person I would have expected to champion it, but we heard that he'd been talking about it. He'd done a seminar at some American university, and that's what he was listening to. And he says, "Oh, the only thing I've been listening to recently is by a band called the Leisure Society." And somebody sent us this transcript, and it was like, "Really?" So our record label got in touch with him and said, "Oh, they'd really like to meet you." So I'm a massive Roxy Music fan, and
well, you kind of forget he had those pop leanings, didn't he?
Yeah.
I've got Here Come the Warm Jets, which is a sort of glam pop album.
Yeah, that was his first one, wasn't it?
But we think of him now as sort of boffin, and instrumental ambient and all that, and producing and everything.
Yeah, I mean, he loves to sing as well. He, like when we went over, he was just about to have he has an a cappella singing night every Wednesday. It's his studio flat, and but we went over and we just went in, and very nervous, and we sat down with him and just talked us through what he was doing at the time, and we told him what we were doing, and just had cheese and biscuits and cup of tea, and
fantastic.
And he was just so lovely, so warm, and totally unpretentious, and just a really lovely guy. And then he invited us back to his Christmas party, and we got really hideously drunk because it was full of kind of quite.
It would have been churlish not to.
Yeah, it was full of quite cool, famous people as well, and I remember Chris Morris, the writer, kind of comedian, actor, whatever category he'd fit into. He was there. I was just like terribly intimidated by him because he's quite an intimidating character. And then
you must have felt like kind of just standing in the corner,
and
sipping nervously on
and Joe Boyd as well, who produced Nick Drake's albums,
and
started Island, I think. But yeah, it was so just like necked loads of prosecco and ended up doing the can around the room with Brian Eno. It was really funny. And then, embarrassingly, I went outside for a cigarette and I put a jacket on. And I got out and I was like, this jacket's really tight. And my girlfriend at the time said, "That's not your jacket. That's a woman's jacket." I just put a woman's jacket on and just So it was quite a messy night, but really good fun.
I thought you were going to say something like Bono wanted his jacket back. Come Monday morning.
No.
Wait all year for the parting shot, for the epilogue, for the moment when it stops and the days fade away.
And you've also done some stuff, we're talking of famous people, Ray Davies.
Yes, that was really amazing because I was a massive Kinks fan when I was about 7 years old. I was a little mod when I was between the ages of about 7 and 10, and the Kinks and the Who and the Jam were my favourite bands when all my friends were listening to really cheesy 80s music. And yeah, I can't remember that. Oh yeah, he was doing the Meltdown Festival at the South Bank, and
because they kind of curate those, don't they?
Yes, exactly. And somebody had sent him Into the Murky Water, and he really liked the instrumentation on it. And so he said, "Will you come in? And I've written some new songs that I'm going to record and play live. Would you come and arrange them for me?" So we went in, just sat down, had 2 days of rehearsal, just sat in Conk Studios in a circle, sat just right next to him, and as soon as he started singing, it was like, fucking hell, that's Ray Davies from the Kinks. Yeah. And we're playing his songs. This is so weird. It's such an intimate situation. So yeah, it was great. Yeah, but again, quite intimidating.
You see, if you do your day job and you stop this, you won't get these kind of things.
I know. It's there have been some amazing moments that we've had.
I think this must be, to be fair, a testimony to your songwriting.
Well,
you've been Ivor Novello awarded twice, haven't you? At least twice. And I mean, that must be fantastic.
It was, and totally unexpected, especially the first time, because we didn't have a record deal then. I was the first person who was
gets
on.
You noticed, doesn't it?
Gets
you noticed as a songwriter.
Well, that's what got me out of the day job, because we'd released this single, Last of the Melting Snow, and we'd been getting radio play from it.
It's another good title. I've got to say, it's a good title.
That one just came out as I was singing it. I just cried that song out one New Year's Eve when I was just sat on my own drinking vodka. And but yeah, I did an interview, and I was working in a warehouse at the time, and I did an interview with Guy Garvey on Six Music, and I think because people like him and Lauren Laverne and Mark Radcliffe, they didn't just play this song; they played the song and then they just spoke about it. It obviously touched them in some way. And they spoke about it a lot, and I think that's why I got the nomination, because it was just something about it just really touched people. And yeah, so somebody had suggested you should enter it for this Ivor Novello thing, and I sent it off. Never thought we'd ever hear anything back. And I was just on my way to work one day, and there was a letter on the doorstep, and I picked it up and opened it. It was like, what? Is this really happening?
Tremendous boost, though. Yeah. I mean, you really,
It was. Well, that was what...
And you must have thought, well, I can do this better than working in the warehouse.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And that is what...
Good that you were, I'm sure.
That is what got me out of the warehouse, to be honest, directly, because when it became a news story, it was ridiculous, actually. I'd gone from being this shy kind of person who played lip gigs very nervously, didn't do interviews at all because I just hated the prospect of doing it and talking to somebody about my music, and to suddenly being thrust into. I went back after it had been announced at the Ivy. I got a taxi back, and when I was doing the interviews, somebody from 5 Live said, "So what are you going to be doing?" Just before the interview started, went out live. Said, "What are you going to be doing after this?" Then I went, he says you're going out for a few drinks to celebrate. I was like, oh no, I've got to go back to my job. It's like, what do you mean your job? I said, oh, I work in a warehouse. And his just eyes lit up, and it was like, and that was the way it went with all the kind of tabloid press. I had my own Sun newspaper headline written about me. It's like, Ivor not got a clue who he is either. So it went from being like a thing that's about songwriting and quite worthwhile, and to being like a kind of tabloid news story. But as a result of that Sun headline, this publisher saw it and said, who is this guy? He hasn't got a publishing deal. And put the word out, and they tracked me down and made me an offer. And I'd already been courted by another publishing company before. Suddenly, when there's two publishing companies, you can get a good deal because they're they're vying for you. So that day, I just said, they said, how much do you need to leave your day job, and we'll pay you that every month for the next 2 years, and we'll pay off your debts for you. And so I left my job, and had 2 years of like living like very comfortably for the first time in my life.
And America seems an awful long way to go as we hide ourselves in the last of the melting snow.
And it's also a little bit terrifying because you're suddenly like, this is your job now. Like this is all you do. Like, do it. It's like it's hard to do things that are creative, isn't it? Like to order. You just,
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's like, but I did. I worked my arse off on that second album, and through the kitchen sinking, because we were working. My girlfriend was at Trinity Music College, so I had access to any instrument I wanted. So it was just like I was getting like saxophone quartets to come in, and
I can see where the Baroque's coming in there.
Yeah, exactly. So really like marimbas and harps and everything, and because I've always loved that anyway, because I'm a big Beach Boys fan. But that suddenly I had the time to do it, and I had the resources, because I could just go and get these students to come in, really good students to come in and play. So it was, so I really made the most of those 2 years.
Yeah, hey, whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I was so happy as well, because I was really enjoying it. But then, of course, the album came out, and then you just have the kind of the paranoia: is it going to be? Because it could never live up to my expectations for it. Because it's like I thought, this is my masterpiece. Put so much work into it. But it's, we just kind of got a
you're
nice...
4 albums in now.
We just seem to have been lucky enough to have people who've stuck with us, and we just kind of tick along, and now we're about to release our 5th album. So it's
fantastic. Well, it's going well. It's fantastic. We've got a sell-out crowd here tonight.
Yes, it's
we're
amazing.
queuing on the way here. I noticed, so that's fantastic. The songwriting's going great. The albums are great. So I don't think they've probably got rid of your job at the warehouse.
Yeah,
it's probably gone.
I think they have. Yeah.
That's been fantastic to talk to you, Nick.
Thank you. Pleasure.
A great show tonight, and good luck with the future.
Cheers. Thank you.
And the face I like doesn't shine anymore. Never mind, 'cause I never done right. And the face I like doesn't shine anymore.
That was a broadcast production by gloveboxlive.uk.
And the face I like